It's rugby's most distinctive feature. The scrum, the gorgeous, brutal man bridge itself, exists in no other sport, even the one it does. It's part of every rugby promo, every attempt to entice a new audience in, and decides so many matches, right from the lowest levels to the World Cup final. And yet, we've all been there. Pull aside the average rugby fan watching on TV in a pub or at home, and I include myself here, and ask what happened at the last scrum that you were cheering or lamenting, and the honest answer, more times than not, will be, I haven't got a bloody clue. And frankly, it's high time that changed. So, with enormous thanks to the RFU, their team, and Steve Borthwick himself, we headed to Franklin's Gardens to sit down with one of the world-leading experts in the meat mesh, the England scrum coach himself, Tom Harrison, for an incredible crash course on the art of scrummaging. So, let's dig into it. Let's dig into every possible question to introduce you to scrummaging. How can a smaller pack march backwards bigger boys? How important are the second and back row? Why in this scrum is South Africa so dominant, but in the next scrum they get no nudge at all? Where should we all be looking as the scrum sets on TV? How important is the engage? And most of all, what the hell goes on at a scrum?
A lot. A lot happens. I think it's the way I tried before. It's a pub fight with a group of mates versus another group of mates. I think the biggest thing for me is almost a pushing contest.
Okay.
So you have different stages to it. So you have the setup, the engagement, the contest, when the ball comes in. And there's different things a coach and players would look at in those elements. So I think there's three strands. So there's the technique. So you could be really powerful and strong, and that probably stops you going backwards. The technique probably puts you in the best position to go forward.
Okay.
So when you get both of those two together, then you've got the technique to transition, the power you've got to go forward, and there's a mindset element of actually wanting to go forward. So you'll see some scrums, there'll be blokes who will have power and mindset, and they'll get it right most of the time, and then their technique might let them down. Or you might have someone who is athletically gifted and powerful, has a good technique, and you watch them going, but why aren't they going forward? And sometimes it's that desire to actually beat the opposite man in front of you. When you get the triangle and you get all three of them on the same page, you're probably going to find a very dominant scrummager.
So if we just look at it, I've just got a kind of random example scrum here, right? So as a viewer who perhaps doesn't know so much about the scrum, where should we as a viewer be kind of looking? Where can you make a judgment on how the scrum's going to go?
So you can probably look at foot movement, flat back, so pause there. If teams are already too far away or too close in here, if backs are too rounded, that's pretty good. They're flat, their leg are all at 12 o'clock. If they're already starting here slightly, you think they're going to fire forward, they're going to get long. If they get long, it's like, imagine a long suspension bridge. They put something in the middle so it doesn't fall down. So if both props are long, it's just going to go down. So then you're probably looking at body shape more so. So that would be a part you'd look at. Then you look on engagement, like hitting flat there. Yeah. And then overhead view is if you just draw a line on everyone's spine here, everything's going forward.
Okay.
All the weight's going forward. There's no real change of an angle. And then that makes a square pushing competition. That's really big things. You look at body shape, flat back knee bend in front row in particularly, and looking at the squareness. So likening it to like if you draw a line between all their hips, and a line there. Probably actually if you put a square across there, you'd actually see a square scrum.
So how important is the second row to this situation?
Massive.
The props get a lot of the credit.
A good second row can make a poor prop look good.
Okay.
And a bad second row can make a great prop look rubbish. And
Right,
it's like that. Yeah, I would train my back five, and I will be training my back five as if they're front row. Rugby is an overlap game. It's a numbers game. So you get an overlap in attack. It's to fix them to draw them. An overload in defence. You see two-man tackles. One man trying to clear out versus two men defensively. He gets blasted. In a maul, he's now seeing how the people are putting backs into the maul, so they get number advantage. The scrum, you lose a player, or one player breaks his shape, suddenly it's a number advantage. The bit you see here was really good is like you can tell everyone's scrummaging.
Yeah.
Like there's no giving anything. But that moment there, pause there, go back.
Oh.
So probably a little bit defensive by Wales. You can't quite say that's fine, that's good.
Okay.
Is the strike's been trapped So they did probably a bit better channel work, but it looks like the Welsh hooker's knees are potentially on the floor. So sometimes a hooker, and you can never see it as a referee or a spectator, they'll drop their knees to the floor, and then it's pretty hard to push.
Right.
Because they've pinned themselves to the floor. So again, illegal and wouldn't coach it, but you see it sometimes defensively. But then the other thing here is that now, if his knees weren't on the floor, Ireland are vulnerable for a second shove, because when I spoke about flat back earlier, no longer flat back. You've got two guys' heads going up, so actually you've got an 8v, well, you've got an 8v6, potentially 8v5 in terms of in good pushing positions. But I think one, maybe because the refs called use it, or where they're at, they can't actually have that second go at them. But if you see this situation, quite often you'll see a team have a second go. The reason his back's gone like this is because the 8's come out, so it means the second row's lost pressure from behind.
Right.
So then he comes up, sort of thing, to deal with it. So and that's the thing here. So South Africa obviously scrummaging long for a penalty. Ireland going, we have to match that. If the Ireland flanking from that scrum against Wales, where he poked his head up, if he pokes his head up here, South Africa are going to go through him.
So how easy is it to coordinate that second strike? Is it something you call, or is it more just a?
I mean, you have a call for it. I think the biggest thing you have to develop, and that's why people say, oh, when the older tight heads get it. If you get 7 guys pushing in the same direction at the same time, you're onto a winner. If you get 8, you're probably going to go forward. See, there's work to do on timing and coordination. But they go, oh, the more experienced props are older, it's because they develop a feel.
Right. Okay.
So when you're in there and you're feeling, and suddenly there's a release of pressure by the opposition, it's almost like that sense of feeling. So then you can go bang. Okay, we can go now. There's some very good ones at that, but that's what South Africa will be doing here.
Yeah.
Building, waiting for either second row's feet to slip or a loose head just to move his feet to step. As soon as that happens, bang, they're going to take you.
If we look at the World Cup final from last year,
good scrum this one.
This is the first scrum of the game. South Africa here managed to get a bit of a nudge on. How do they do it? How do they get on top here?
So this is first scrum of the game against a strong scrum, attacking ball. New Zealand they're one of the best in the world at this, and they don't get it right here. They're channeling, so ball into number 8. So you can see the New Zealand number 8's already broken his bind to get the ball to then go and attack. But in this split second here, you see where the ball hits the knee of the flanker.
Oh yeah.
So that's now going to extend the time of the scrum.
Okay.
Because the ball's not at the back. So then what the New Zealand 8 now has to do, he has to try and pick it up. Going back to the clip we spoke about earlier, when the number 8 comes out and the second row broke with the Ireland player, now the pressure releases, the 8's released. So now you've got 8v7, okay, because he's trying to play the ball. And because it's not clear, he has to have a second jab at it, or you'll see in a minute, and at that point the shove comes on. So you play it through. So now you've got 8v7, he's had to jab at it. You just see the second row shape.
Oh yeah.
At that moment now, because of he's had to come up, the second row shapes come up, and in that moment, it looks like a real dominant scrum.
Yeah.
All because the ball hit the flanker's knee.
Wow. Okay.
Had the ball not hit the flanker's kney, I have no doubt the 8 would have picked and he would have made gain line. Where New Zealand didn't have that brilliant channel, and just watch the work of the flanker here. So, just as you see now, the ball's already come in, but she's moved her leg slightly, so there's a clear channel for it to come back.
Yeah.
And now that's playable. Boom.
And then that's
So you imagine if New Zealand had that first one, it would have been straight back, channeled straight into his feet, and he would have been off. And New Zealand are one of the best at doing that. This one here, so what you'll see is it's 8v8, Simbin's back in, second row shape's different, 8's not trying to pick the ball. Yes, you see a better context, so there's no pressure release or pressure break, if that makes sense. Everyone's in a pushing position. I think that probably goes back to your question around the importance of second row and back 5.
Yeah, massive.
As soon as one's not pushing, it breaks the pressure release.
Normally you expect the team in possession to have an advantage.
Yeah, so you think even from a refereeing point of view, it's a big decision to turn someone over. That being said, also the team under the most pressure because the hooker has to strike for the ball.
Okay.
So then they take a foot off the floor, so they're under more pressure. So you've got an advantage potentially from a refereeing point of view, not all referees, but it's perceived as a bigger decision to turn a team over at the scrum. You've got an advantage because you're dictating when the ball comes in.
Okay.
So you can either delay your feed, that I wouldn't advise doing, because what happens is we get a stable scrum, and then the 9's waiting for the hooker, and they're waiting. He might feel under a little bit of pressure, so then they're waiting, and the scrum goes down. And then it's either bringing the referee in for 50-50. I think as soon as it's stable and we're in a pushing position, let's get the ball in and get on with the contest. Or you get some teams that will hit through the mark and they want to get the ball in as quick as possible because they're on top. And if, let's say, you've had a game where there's loads of reset scrums, then hitting through the mark, the referee might allow that to go because the ball's in and we want to get the ball out.
Okay.
And that referee's got to be very aware that there's been an illegal hit and chase. So then if he's going to reward that team, again, it's probably the best if that one gets to the back, turns the play away, ward them on the next one, or penalise them for hit and chase.
As spectators, you see a scrum go forward and you assume it's going to be a penalty to the team that's going forward. And here, Italy drive forward, penalty given against them.
So that's on the scrum, that's a collapsed scrum, and that's what he'll make his decision on here.
Okay.
What happens is they pick the scrum back up, and because of this collapse, you think it's already been destabilised, so there's already been movement, so now there's going to be like a left shift by Italy. If you're Italy, it's 8v7, so what's likely to happen is you're going to win the engagement, and if you engage too hard, you're going to go through the mark and get free kicked.
Okay.
Because you've got an extra number engaging. So then it's knowing that, and it's then going, we're likely to have a weight advantage at some point, keep it in the air.
Okay.
And we'll get to the contest because we've got an extra number, so we've got an opportunity here to scrum a penalty. Gone are the days where you used to see coaches win the bind, win the scrum, and it was all about basically how much weight can I put through the bind, and then the actual loading came in. Like, gone are those days. I think very much it's more around setting yourself up to put yourself in the best position for the contest.
Okay.
I still think there's a bit of a contest on the engagement. When you hit, you're trying to almost win the middle, but I don't think it's you can't hit and chase through the mark. So I think it's that hit and win the middle bit, and then you've got to. It's almost like hit to then build in pressure. So as soon as your shoulders hit contact and your feet are on the floor, there's pressure going through your body. So there's pressure before then there's a proper push, but there's it's almost like a dial. It's a build up to when that ball comes in.
Okay.
But that's almost neutral from both teams. Like if I was to hit into you, and I'm soft and you start pushing,
okay,
we're just going to have a mess. So then the bit where people talk about stability and balance, it's got to be kind of equal from both teams. But if you get one team who hammer in and go through, then they're liable to be penalised. I think you see that sometimes with big French packs when they come to Europe. They've got a weight advantage normally, but they'll pick up more free kicks against them on the engagement because they don't understand how much of a weight advantage they've got. So when they engage, in France, because mass moves mass, they bang into each other and there's bit more of a contest and it's refereed differently and it's different around the scrum in that league. When they get to Europe, sometimes they'll hit and they'll hit like they might do with 1,000 kg pack versus 1,000 kg pack where they'll get in the top 14, but they're actually hitting 800 kg. So it moves and the referee goes, okay, through the mark.
Right,
so it's them being aware that they might have more mass, so actually how do they control their engagement to make sure they get the contest. You do see similar things in the World Cup. So France, when they played Uruguay potentially, gave away 3 penalties.
Yeah.
But when the scrum stayed up, they were dominant.
Yeah.
But that was them going, we're going to engage on you, we're going to hit you really hard. And it's actually, no. If you've got them there, how do you control yourself to be able to get to the contest? If you're engaging and there's a dartboard, like you don't want to be aiming down, like aiming to punch it like bullseye, hit flat. As soon as you start hitting down, you get into this position. And again, I don't envy all referees. You could be in a situation where you've hit and you're both hitting slightly down, and then a referee is looking at, is it an elbow down? Is it a knees to the floor? And for me, you're inviting the referee into the game, and to remove the referee and force the referee to make clear and obvious decisions because you're so technically good at what you do. So you set yourself up to succeed, you engage into a position that gets you into the contest, and then you allow the contest to happen, and the referee will tell you that it's so much easier to make informed and correct decisions from a pushing contest than it is from a technical infringement. So I try and coach my players to be as technically brilliant as they can to remove any difference of opinion with a referee. So what you've probably got here is, again, cause and effects. You've got loose edge on red loose edge on a bit of an angle and long. You've got an elbow down, but then if you're the Welsh coach, you're then going, okay, but who went in first? Is the tight end on the back of the arm, is that legal? Bind on the arm, or is that back of armpit? Which one is it? So then you go and referee that, please.
Okay.
Right, okay, it's one of those ones where you sometimes feel for referee. So what I'd only say is, to props is like remove any technical outs.
Sure. Okay.
So be technically so very good at what you do that if it goes down, you're not in the dock being punished for something that you might not have done.
Yeah.
Where there, you could argue blue tighters in the back of the arm, rolled the shoulder, dropped it.
Right.
Or you could argue loose heads, long-legged, elbow down, pulling down. So then to actually play away here is probably a brilliant decision.
Leinster v La Rochelle. La Rochelle have nominally a bigger pack, one of the biggest packs in Europe. And then on this scrum here, Leinster get completely on top of them. What are they doing to work through here a bigger pack?
There's a lot.
Okay. Let's go from the start.
This is after half time. So La Rochelle will exert a bit of force on them. If you've got a big pack, like against a pick, sometimes a team might not want them to engage. So if you don't engage as much, it means they can't get into a real good pushing position, so they're slightly rocked. So this is before the bind call. So you see how La Rochelle this is pre-engaged.
Oh yeah.
So there's no engagement. There's no engage. And this man, he's physically very strong. So this is now going to become a squat off, where Antonio is now going to get caught high and has to adjust his feet because there's no engagement. Mm-hmm. So the solution is clever, but it actually came back to get him later on. Leinster have closed the gap to negate the weight. Mm-hmm. And it's been allowed to happen, and they win this penalty. The bench come on, then Leinster go free kick penalty against them because they close the gap, and then it gets refereed and they get penalised. Okay. And the next one they try and close it again, and it's the second, so they get free kick, then it's a penalty again. So it's like, okay, well done, your tactic worked, but then it's how do you carry on trying to execute that when the bench front row came on and went, okay, well we know they're going to do that, so so we're going to put ourselves a bigger gap. And make sure it's clear and obvious that they're trying to close the gap on them.
Right.
So that's where some of the tactical side of it come in, and the bench just it. I think here, if I was La Rochelle, how much we don't want to reset, I would not be happy going into this scrum here in terms of like, that's pre-engaged.
Yeah.
The solution beforehand on the crouch, for me, the hooker sets the distance of the gap. Mm-hmm. If he set it too close, then you're in a position where you can't engage. You play it on, so once post set, just before ball comes in. So now, so you can see it there. It was all like one goes in and two goes in. So there's no engagement. But in this situation here, like Antonio's in an okay position. He's probably rocked slightly. It's his ability now and the pack's ability to just squeeze down. Mm-hmm. You're probably not going to have a dominant scrum here because the weight's been negated through the setup phase. So then their ability to understand that and build the pressure down. So then pause there. So what you're going to see now is a slight left movement by the Leinster pack. So they actually step left to create. They go left then forward, and you'll see it. You normally see it for your back 5 feet crossing over. Some of the back 5 feet is like it's not just a forward movement. It's like a slight. So that's their feet there.
Okay.
They go in like this way to then go there, rather than just going forward. They almost go slightly left to then go forward. So they're a bit of crossing over, and they come round left.
Okay.
And then he's on the outside, and then now they square up and go forward. They can only square up and go forward though, because on the far side, the young La Rochelle loosehead, he's lost a disconnect with his hooker.
Okay.
So then we go back to what we spoke about earlier around being able to transfer back 5 weight.
Yeah.
Because he stepped on the outside, because the Leinster pack have like shifted left slightly to then go forward. Because he's gone on the outside, he's lost any ability to transfer the weight. So,
right.
So as you play it through, Furlong come through the gap and you see that's the loose head. So you think now that he's almost pushing, he's broken the connection. So although these guys have come on the outside, the Furlong still looks very square because it's been more of a lateral movement to then go forward.
Okay.
And the loose head, because he's got the outside of him, he's allowed him. So now you go back to numbers, you've got a 3v2, and you've probably actually lost those guys, so you've got more weight coming through. So again, you can't step left.
Yeah.
So technically
a
penalty offence, but then there's a free kick offence from the start because they've closed the gap and it's pre-engaged. But from a spectator's view, they've demolished them.
Yeah.
The fix for La Rochelle is one, to start with the first one in the setup, give yourself a gap to be able to engage. If that doesn't happen, once engaged, your ability to to build pressure and stay square and that loose head connected. As soon as that loose head goes, that's what accelerates the go forward. Same front five, you've got different coach, different environment, different context, different team. Like Ireland developed a really good ability to have a second go. I think the Welsh tight head here is trying to stay square. You could say the Irish loose head is on a slight angle, but they ultimately they've gone forward. So he's trying to stay square, slight angle comes up, but you go to this view here, pause, so that's already illegal. Loose head binds under, tight head binds over. Targ changed his bind to come under to go forward. I don't know, but that picture there. So if the referee is on that side, I don't think they would allow that to happen. Whether they would reset that and warn him,
Right.
I don't know how they've got in that position, if it's intentional or not. But you think from a tight head pushing point of view, if you've got loose head underneath you and he's pushing on you and he's pushing there and he's twisting you, and then suddenly you go here, make yourself small. Yeah. There's no area for loose head to push on. So then you go, what's he going to push on? And then you're not actually binding him into the scrum, so he's on the outside of the scrum. So then all his power actually ends up completely on the outside, right. And then that allows to go forward. Yeah, tight head shouldn't be able to. Loose head's probably got to do a better job of stopping him being able to do this, but like a tight head shouldn't be able to let go of his bind, come back through and under. So then even there, like the Welsh loose head has nothing to scrummage on. Yeah. So as it comes up, it's like the Welsh loose head shouldn't come up, but actually there's nothing to stop him coming up because he should be under that body there.
Okay.
But as soon as the tight head twists and comes here, like you've got such a small surface area, there's potential he's going to slip out.
So one last question then. If, as a viewer, and you're watching a scrum on TV on Saturday, what is the one thing you want to be keeping your eye on most to try and have an idea of what's going on at the scrum time? So
I'll go back to the first bit, the body shape. So is their back flat? So not angling down, not angling up. So is their back flat? Do they have a knee bend?
Okay.
Or if their back's rounded, then they're probably under pressure. If their back's flat, they're probably in a pushing position. If they're long-legged, then they're under pressure, so probably knee bend. And then are they square? And by square I mean are hips connected, and that's from across the whole of the scrum. So when you see some of the good scrums there, you can draw a line from the number 8 going the whole way across the back. If you had an overhead view, you can see that there's no daylight between players. They'll probably be the things.
It's rugby's most distinctive feature, and yet, for most of us, for most of our lives, one we all blagged knowing about. But it need be no longer. Keeping an eye on flatbacks, weight channeling through from the second and back rows, the holy trinity of technique, power, and mindset. Scrummaging is many things, an art, a science, a pub brawl, and a car park, but no longer need it be a mystery. Thanks for watching that. I hope you enjoyed it. And I also want to thank a few more people because this has been a video we wanted to make for a really long time, and to have finally done it's really exciting. So I want to thank the RFU in general, thank Tim for setting it up, Bill for facilitating it, Lizzie and the team at Northampton Saints for allowing us in for the day, for hosting us. Thanks to Steve Borthwick for allowing this to happen, getting the kind of wheels in motion to get this going. And most of all, thank Tom, who was absolutely brilliant, as you just saw there. Shared so much, taught us so much. I haven't watched a scrum the same way since. It's been absolutely phenomenal and hugely, hugely appreciated to share so much like genuinely world-class knowledge on the scrum with not just myself and Will and, you know, us, but hopefully all of you. So yeah, thank you so much to everyone at the RFU for allowing this to happen. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you very soon for, I mean, there's a bunch of things. There's another thing we shot that day in Franklin's Gardens, which is hopefully coming up very soon, and some more stuff, because it is all indeed rugby.
Thank you so much for your time as well.
That's right.
Cheers.
I fucking love scrums.
Yeah. So do I now. Yeah.